Losing Thomas and Ella, A Father's Story by Marcus B. Weaver-Hightower. Where it started for me, I got a call at work around 1 in the afternoon. My wife Jenna, who was about 22 weeks pregnant with twins, a boy and a girl, had just said she was feeling some pains and she had called the hospital. They just told her to lay there. They also told her to take a bath. Subsequently, though, she called me back. They told her to come to the hospital. They thought I should come too. But she had the car that day, and of course I missed the bus. And then his wife said, I'll come get you. We drove right to the hospital as quick as we could. They reached the hospital. As soon as they got her into the hospital room, she noticed she had blood. So she got really upset. That's blood on a tissue. There wasn't a doctor really at that point, but there was at least 6 or 7 nurses kind of milling about, trying to get Jenna to calm down, because she's crying and being upset and all that. That first day felt like forever. Everybody running around and me just kind of pushed away, standing in the corner and watching, just hoping that things are gonna settle down. The thing I remember a lot was being thirsty. I was pissed at one point because they kept bringing Jenna water and I didn't want to ask for anything because I didn't want to deter from her. But I really would have wanted some water. Just someone to ask. Eventually the doctor on call came. I'm Dr. Meyer. Let's see what's going on with you. She did a digital exam on Jenna. That's digital meaning finger, not on the computer. Thought bubble shit. One baby Ella had come past the cervix and was kind of half into Jenna's, birth canal and half still in the uterus. And so that was obviously a bad sign. Ella was down in the birth canal for 2 days. On the third day, we had to decide whether we wanted to wait and risk future complications to Jenna and Thomas, or to deliver Ella knowing that she was much too early. We knew there was like a 99% chance that Ella wouldn't survive delivery, but if she stayed, she wasn't going to survive either. And so we ended up delivering her on that third day. She was with us for 45 minutes, alive and kind of fighting. But because she was so early, her lungs weren't developed. Oh, she's so tiny. She passed away. Oh, that's so sad. After that, things really started calming down. Jenna's body wasn't freaking out nearly as much. We were in the hospital for 14 days. First day, they're lying there. Second day, third day, sitting. Fourth day, I don't know, talking. Fifth day, sitting. Sixth day, bored, yawning. Um, and for the next at least week, it was looking pretty hopeful for Thomas. Thomas only had to make it to 24 weeks before he would be considered viable. I must say, this diagram here is kind of unnerving, like showing what's inside. Doing all this, Jenna, being a nurse, she doesn't want to be a burden on any of the other nurses. So she had me doing a lot of stuff. Like, for example, she liked to have her hair washed, so I did all of that for her. And I knew where the secret fridge is that they don't tell the visiting families about, so I'd go get her Sprite. I was just sitting by her and holding her hand and trying to keep everything calm. The suite had a little squeaky cot where I slept. I would go home to take a nap when Jenna's family was there. Other than that, I was in the hospital room the entire time. After Ella was born, the placenta was still inside Jenna, so when we cut the cord, it was still hanging out. I mean, it was inside her vagina and all that sort of stuff. So just from Jenna having to use the bathroom, things like that, it got E. coli. And so that went up and started to infect the placenta and the uterus too. I wonder why they did not take out the placenta, because then normally it would go septic. if you don't birth everything completely. I guess it depends. Like twins, sometimes there's some twins which are they share the same sac or they have their own sacs. It was a Friday night, probably about 7 o'clock, when Jenna really started to feel uncomfortable. Probably about 10 or 11, she really went into hard labor again. That next morning, she finally gave birth to Thomas. He came out inside the sac. I think that should be SAC, sac. Or if there's a little asterisk there. Okay. When the doctor opened the sac, Thomas was already stillborn. Oh, there were signs that he was struggling during the birth. It was in the delivery itself that he passed away. Oh, okay, the asterisk, also called a veiled or on-call birth, when the baby is born in the membrane. We held both babies after they were delivered, which for me was weird. With Ella, it was easier because she was born alive, so it was kinda no question. But when Thomas was born, he was stillborn. And I think if we would have had Ella stillborn first, I would have been more weirded out by holding her. Oh, from the pictures, he looks to be quite a good size. Up until this, I really hadn't been around any bodies at all, other than, oh, do you mean babies? Really around any babies at all, other than, oh, there's one up at the front of the church or whatever, that sort of experience. After Thomas was delivered, it was kind of weird. We had been in the hospital for like 11 days or so leading up to that point. Then, after Thomas was born, the doctors and nurses were like, well, okay, you guys are kind of done. Okay, so like no empathy there, very cold. Um, they gave Jenna an extra day or two to be checked out to make sure the infection was going away. And then we just sort of went home with empty arms. The long after. We didn't do a big formal funeral. There's an Angel of Hope statue downtown, so we just did a little prayer service there. We didn't do a big service because we were just inundated with phone calls and cards to the point where, for me, I got kind of angry about it. I just wanted to be left alone. Then we had like a barbecue thing where we made pulled pork sandwiches. Just an excuse to get together, hang out, and do something easy. Well, I guess, in this case, that's not really a right thing to do. Um, people mean well, and that can always be taken the wrong way. So many people talk about parents or whoever telling you as the husband, the father to be strong. I didn't really get that. I tried to be strong, not at the expense of myself. At the same time, I tried to be there for Jenna, just emotionally. I wasn't necessarily being told, be the man. Maybe I just wouldn't let myself fall apart at that point either. Every once in a while, we still say a prayer. Jenna has had an on again, off again relationship with God after this. My faith is less shaken, I guess. I'm Catholic, and Catholics realize the world sucks and bad things happen, and there's no real reason for it. Bad things such as 1607 flood in London, the Holocaust, locust plagues, fires. You just kind of deal with it. That's part of what it is to be here. But Thomas and Ella's deaths have shaken me in the sense that I'm less of a good Catholic. Now I'm like, the hell with it. But we still go to church from time to time, mostly when we're starting to feel guilty. The fact of the matter is, regardless of what you do or say or how angry you get, it doesn't change what happened. I focused on that. No matter how mad we get about it, it doesn't help. The harder thing for me is more so when you try to figure out what did we do to screw this up. You feel like if you do certain things, like you don't eat cold cuts, you don't eat soft cheeses, those are the things that cause problems. And we didn't do any of that. So why did the pregnancy not work out? I think to some extent losing Thomas and Ella has been a strain on Jenna's and my relationship. But people keep saying things like, well, it's not as hard on marriages as you've been told. The divorce rate is only 76%. And I'm like, 76%? Asterisk. Relationship breakdown rates are higher for those with perinatal losses, but 76% far overestimates the occurrence. He cites a scholar. If we're not at the same place in our grief or grieving in different ways, that puts a strain. I think Jenna is just somebody who keeps it to herself. I know she gets mad though. I think she thinks he's over it already. Or the anger thing, where if she's angry at some people and I'm not angry at them, she gets frustrated with me for not feeling the same way she is. Why are you taking their side? One thing that upset me is when you see babies the age Thomas and Ella would have been, or when you start thinking about having twins because the likelihood is that we'll never have twins again. It's that whole idea of what would have been that you're missing. It's not necessarily just sadness, partially it's anger too. Like when people are talking about being excited about a pregnancy. It's not that I don't want them to be excited about their pregnancy, I just don't want to necessarily be excited with them. Now, with our second pregnancy, there are people saying, well, why are you so worried? What's the big concern? And sometimes it's people that you wouldn't expect to say that, like Jenna's mom was saying, when you have this baby, if we have this baby, if, why would you say that? Why would you even think that? Well, it's pretty obvious why. You have fear forever. You're so worried about all the possible things that could be going wrong, like placenta previa. That's when the placenta blocks the opening, the cervix is here. Cord accident, um, cord wrapped around the leg or the neck. Trisomy 13 or 18, that's Down syndrome. I don't know what's the other one. Infection. That it makes you unwilling to get excited about buying a stroller or all of the dumb stuff that you should be excited about doing or that should seem so important. We had this idea about what pregnancy was supposed to be buying clothes, kissing bellies, and suddenly it's not. Suddenly there's this chance of loss of the baby not making it. It's what you've got, just not what you wanted it to be. And I think that's a big part of what makes it so hard the realization that things aren't in your control. I'd like to say to other bereaved fathers that it's going to get better, but I'm not sure that it will. You like to think that there's some guarantees that are going to come out of it or some sort of lesson. I don't think there is that either. It's just one of those things where you just have the shit luck. And what are you going to do about that? Well, you can't do anything really. You can just kind of hope that you're not going to get the bad call next time. The end.